Amen, we are. So I'm going to shut
Are,
up and you do the talking.
okay, so we're live now? Okay, he said
Yes.
he'd be quiet, and he was telling the truth. All right, we are actually live. Hi, you guys. My name is Celestina Godinez, and I was in the arts for many years, got my piece of paper in it, got my degrees in it. And today we're going to go ahead and we're going to show you just a really basic how to make theater masks, the comedy and tragedy. In order to do this, I'm going to go through a base of the supplies you need. So the first thing you need, obviously, is paint. This paint is really easy. It's non-toxic. You can find it at Walmart, like anywhere. The little tubes are like $1. The big tubes are $3, so they're easy to get. You'll need some basic colors. So you're gonna need yellow, and these things can be called apple, folklore, and they're really easy to use. Next one is red. Then we need blue. And these three colors can actually make different colors like green, orange. We could make purple if you combine red, going this way, red and blue. But sometimes it's just basic, get a basic purple because you'll be mixing forever and ever, never, never. Another thing too that you'll need is you're going to need some white and you're going to need some black. So those are just basic colors to add. We're going to do this all Bob Ross style. You're also going to need something to put your paints in. I currently have mine in a palette that's all fancy, but you can actually do the same thing with just paper plates, a piece of cardboard, anything that's around. You'll also need something to wash your brushes with. And I love this. This is here, product placement. I love to use these little containers that have coffee in them. But you can use anything, soda cup, anything. Another thing that we're gonna need is you do not have to do paper towels. You can do whatever's around, old t-shirt, preferably your own. Um, uh, old cloth, anything that you need. So today what we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you a technique called fat over lean. And what it basically means is that you are taking a thin layer and you're covering it with a larger layer and then a larger layer and a larger layer. We're also going to work with a technique called underpainting. And I'm going to show you just kind of some basic stuff to make it look like, yeah, I really know what I'm doing. So, okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with the underpainting. I did a drawing right here. It's difficult to see. It'll get easier, but I don't want you guys to just see my face, and so I tried to get the camera a little bit so you'll see kind of what I'm doing here. This can be found at Hobby Lobby. You do not need to get one, but it's always good that with the brushes you have, I'm doing this so it looks fast, but one of the tricks that we use in the art field is to have a larger brush to do backgrounds with. You can also use like a flathead brush. This is good for making lines and for a technique with what we're going to do, fat over lean. This is going to help us out to make a pattern. We're also going to be using this brush right here. This is like what you guys can normally find, just a basic, regular, run-of-the-mill brush. And I'm going to add a couple more brushes. You can get fancy brushes. I don't recommend it. A lot of these are Walmart brushes. It just depends on how extravagant you want to go. But a lot of times what I use when I'm doing anything is I have a Walmart brush. That way, I don't have to worry. I'm like, oh my God, I spent this much money on a brush. Not a problem. Okay. All right. So we're all ready to go. We have our paint. We have our palette. We have our brushes. We have our canvas. I made this one really super big so that you can see what I'm doing. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is shake up my white, and we're going to do an underpainting. And so on my palette here, I have a whole lot of white. Let me show you this. Well, it's white, so just note it's a whole lot of white. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a cloud atmosphere for right here for our little masks. So what I do is I do like a real thin base, and Bob Ross does that. If you're a fan of the really awesome Afro Man, this is a technique he uses, but he uses oil paint. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a really thin layer of white. Okay, and then I'm going to add a light color like my yellow. So adding that, look, a little bit of orange got in it, but remember, there's no accidents, just happy, or there's no mistakes, just happy accidents. So, okay, so as I'm doing this, you'll notice that the white is making the yellow really super fluffy. And my brush is actually making this really soft cloud looking thing in the background. Okay, and so I have my white, my yellow. I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, and it's starting to get kind of fluffy, and it's looking like a sunset background. And so canvas is actually fabric, and it's got little grooves in it. So what the brush is doing is it's pushing the paint into the little grooves. So if I add a little bit of red, because yellow and red make orange, so I'm going to add red. Check that out. Oh my gosh, it's so fluffy. And the more you just gently go back and forth with it, the more it creates cloud cover. Look at how pretty that is. Oh my God. Okay, we're going to go full on red. Let's see how dark we can get this. Oh my gosh. So you guys were given, I believe, canvas panels, and you can use the same technique with a smaller brush. And notice that like my arm isn't like all flimsy, like it's not like woo woo woo. It actually, I'm creating a solid brush stroke back and forth, and that is what's making it look really fluffy and pretty. So I'm going to add, just for funsies, just to kind of show you guys what this can do, we're going to add a little bit of blue underneath, and you're going to see it start turning into a purple. It's like, oh my gosh, look at how pretty that is. So it's so pretty. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is why don't we add some clouds? You know, this is your world, just like Bob Ross says, this is your world. So I'm going to add a little bit of my white. Okay, so I got a lot of white on the end of that brush. And we're just going to add a little bit of fluffiness to the cloud. So yeah, if you actually do see like a lot of landscapers, this is how they start out. They make just this really beautiful skyline. They'll make it blue, they'll make it all different colors. And I actually added another technique here where I created something called a highlight and a low light. The highlight is where your sun is, and the low light is where the shadows are. So up here, obviously, that's where our highlight is. And down here, that's where our shadow is. In a lot of things, like you can even see in my face right now, like where my nose is, there's a shadow. There's also a shadow right here. And it's just because I have a lamp above my head. So where the highlight is where the lamp is going on my face, and where there's the least amount of light, that's where your shadow is. So a lot of times when you're making something realistic, that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for where exactly is the light and where's it creating light and shadow on your object. I know that that can be kind of woo, but that's just kind of like a little tip to know. So, all right. So now we're going to go ahead and add a little bit more so that we have something kind of cool to work with. And I'm just doing a small bit of the canvas because I know you guys have a smaller canvas. So just for funsies though, let's go ahead and finish this out with the blue. And that way we have like a really fun space to work with. So, and when you are going towards the light, you can go really dark, like, I'm aggressive with this side, I'm getting my paint in there. And then as you start going towards your light, your hand gets a little bit softer. So it's kind of like if you're trying to open a jar, you're putting a lot of pressure on that jar. So you're really trying to open the pressure on the jar. And so that's kind of like where you are here, where you're really, really putting a lot of pressure. And as you start getting towards the light, it's almost like you're petting a baby bird. It's really light. So that's another trick too, is to kind of know where to press down with your brush and where to be lighter with your brush. So this is like our heavy metal side, and this is our classical music side. All right, so that's a pretty good, like, it looks pretty. It looks really, really pretty. And so, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the Bob Ross, washing off my brush, tappy, tappy. Okay, so we're done with that big brush. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start working on our masquerade mask. Comedy and tragedy, classic theater masks. They're very theatrical. When you see the masks, they're not like happy, like, hey, they're happy, like, yeah, and they're not, you know, the tragedy isn't, it's like, and it's just to show the two extremes of, of the theater. You have great moments of happiness, you have great moments of sadness. And so that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So I don't know how advanced everybody is with drawing, but we're going to go ahead and just try a basic and see what happens. So instead of doing black to do my drawing, I'm going to go ahead and do blue, just to kind of show you guys how to draw. We're going to go ahead and start with the comedy. So we're going to start with the happy one. So here we go. So when you start drawing it, think about the way your face is. It's kind of an oval. And we're going to do it in a direction where a majority of the masks are to the side. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. People can make them where they're like right in front, but we're going to go ahead and do one to the side. Okay, so the side's a little bit different. So how you start out, and remember, this can be exaggerated, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make kind of like a Nike sign. So I've got a Nike sign there, and it just kind of swoops around. And then And this can also be done with charcoal pencil, graphite pencil, which is just your regular number 2, I'm going to school pencil. But when you're painting, this the charcoal will go into your paint. So just kind of a heads up. Okay, and so then I'm making, it's almost like the letter V. So the letter V is the part of our mask. Okay, and so we have a Nike sign and the letter V. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, and I don't know if you've ever studied what your face looks like, but you can even see it here where you have my eyebrow and my eyebrow goes into my nose. Just the line, the shadow, you can see it, it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my eyebrow. I'm going to bring it around. And then I'm going to do my eyebrow. Bring it around. Now, a lot of people do have problems with creating noses. It doesn't have to be where you're like really big statement of a nose. You really just have to, when you think about it, just do a letter U and then a sideways backward C. That's all you really need. So we already have that kind of put out. We're going to go ahead and put something kind of like the size of an almond. And now remember, he's going. So huge smile. Huge smile. We might even make this a little bit bigger. Give room for that much smile. Okay, so this is my underpainting. We're doing something called an underpainting. After that, I'm gonna add some paint and I'm gonna show you guys the fat over lean technique. The part of our lean was that background. So then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a small layer, big layer on top, small layer, big layer on top. I'll be with you guys. It's all right. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do is, because they are masks, we are going to add some strings coming out of it, because normally you tie it around and you should be, you have it around your head. So in order to do that, we're going to make a wave. So I'm going to go to the corner and I'm going to do a wave. And then right underneath it, I'm going to match that wave. And then I'm going to do a V, and that's one of my strings. And then I'm going to, over here where the Nike sign is, we're going to put a little bit of a drop there. And then here we go. Wave, wave, and a V. All right, so we've already started. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to clean my brush all Bob Ross style. Okay, and now comes the fun part. All right, so in order to do this, we're actually going to use this blue as our shadow. And so I'm going to add some white on my brush. And then the brush strokes are going to be very quick. And I'm going to take advantage of what this brush looks like. It's a little square with some white paint on it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap it lightly and keep the square in there. So tap it lightly, tap, tap, tap. And I'm going to start filling out the shape of my mask. So sometime when you're like looking in the mirror, there's certain parts of your face that are actually raised. And that's just like how the lamp is on my face. There's certain parts like the tip of my nose, my forehead, my little cheeks, if I smile, they'll actually become lighter. And so these are different planes of your face. So the things that are going to be the lightest are your nose, your forehead, and I'm just slowly putting little squares of white in those particular parts. Got that. Your chin has one. All right, and so I'm actually pulling that color in too, of the shadow. So since I have, let me get into frame here, and I have that highlight right here, under here, I've got a shadow. So I can actually make that shadow. Okay, so I'm gonna add another color, and I'm gonna think maybe add a little bit of yellow. And of course you can, this is your mask, so you can choose any color that you want to. So I'm going around the eyebrow line, and I'm making sure that my my acrylic paint isn't too dry and I can mix them together. So I'm going right with the eyebrow, doing the shape of the face. I'm putting that yellow underneath. And I'm really just playing with it. One thing too is when you start painting, try not to have a lot of fear with it. Know that with this particular paint, you can mess up and you can still paint over it. Let it dry, paint over it. You know, it's that's really kind of like the what's so awesome about painting is that it gives you that freedom to do what you want, and there's no fear of going, uh-oh, I can't go backwards. You can go backwards. So, okay. All right. So now I have a very lean layer right there. I'm going to add a little bit more blue to indicate my eyeball. Shadow underneath your cheekbone. All right. And then I've got a base of a very, very happy comedy mask. Ta-da! I can actually even, I'm gonna wash off my brush. I'm taking advantage of the fact that the colors that I'm using are really mixing well together. And so I'm gonna take a little bit of red and just kind of add that in there just for a little bit. Like, the way you make your designs, it adds energy to your piece. So that's something to think about too, is that if I, just for funsies, wanted more energy to this, I could literally just trace it with a line, make a swirly, and it adds a little bit of fun to what you're doing. After this dries, you can actually go back and you can put sparkles, dots, anything that you want to, words, anything that makes it yours. Okay, so we're gonna do, while this is drying, we're gonna do the other side. And so I'm gonna take my blue, or should we do black because it's the sad frowny one? Nah, let's do blue. Okay, so remember the Nike sign? Okay, same thing. And we're gonna swoop it, Nike sign. Okay, that's gonna make our base. Let's see if I can get it a little bit closer. Okay, Nike sign. Okay, but now our V, we're gonna be doing our V. And we're gonna be facing it this direction. Okay. Okay, next what we're gonna do is, remember we were talking about your eyebrows going in. So we're going to do eyebrows going in. If you guys ever decide to take an acting class, there's a lot of different ways that your eyebrows move that shows emotion. And so if you go and you're like, I'm angry, to indicate that in paintings, your eyebrows would go in. This guy's kind of sad, so his eyebrows are going to be like, woo. If you can see my eyebrows, they'll go up and out a little to indicate that he's sad. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll put the C. Remember the C and the U? You can put a C on the other side. And this is just going to be a starting off point. Okay, I have my almonds to indicate, and I might even bring them down a little to show, because I'm exaggerating. And so the mouth too is going to be more of a instead of, it's going to, so very sad, frowny face. And this is just showing that in theater, there's happy times and there's sad times. Okay, and so then we're going to take our blue and just like before, squiggle, 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 add a V, and then we have the part of the mask that has the strings. We'll do the same here. We're going to add that little bit to show a shadow. Squiggle, 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 and V. A really fun exercise to try when you're at home is to take a clear piece of plastic and put it over one of your favorite paintings and find the shapes in it. A lot of times when you're drawing something, even a person, the human hand is really hard to do. Just look for the shapes. If my hand's like this, you can see a circle, you can see rectangles, and it actually makes drawing a little bit easier if you look at the shapes and the shapes that are on the outside. Good to know. All right, so then I have my frowny, very frowny, sad mask. Okay, so then we're going to start again. We're going to do our white. I'm going to focus on my forehead. I'm going to focus on my nose. Here we go. Forehead, nose, my chin, my cheeks. That's all going to be the lightest color that you have. Okay, and I'm also going to use that dark color. Add a little bit more dark color. And put the shadows in. Okay, I'm starting to put my shadows in. All right, now, next, grab my yellow again. So the colors that I had you guys work with are actually called primary colors, and they're the base colors that can work with everything. You see those color wheels, you just see different versions of the same colors. You see that yellow, you see the blue. Green is just a mixture of yellow and blue. Yeah, so I'm putting that yellow in. This little guy, he's seen some days. I'm putting a shadow underneath. And I'm also going to work with something called smile lines and jowls. I'm pretty good with that. You see those lines right there? Right there. And then they wrap kind of around. This is your jowl line. And these are your smile lines. And so what I'm going to do to emphasize that he's really super sad is we are just going to go on both sides. And he is super sad. Somebody took his ice cream cone. All right. Okay. Also working with something called impressionism, where I'm just making different brush strokes to create what I want. And I keep going over. All right. So, and also you can make this how you want to make it. This is just showing you the basics. Okay, so after I have my comedy, I have my tragedy. Let's start putting a little bit of details. You can do whatever you want with this. I'm going to use my black just to emphasize it to see what it looks like on camera. So with my black, I'm going to darken up those eyes. I'm going to give him some eyebrows. It is up to you how you want to do eyebrows. Lately they've been like super thin or super thick, unibrow, you know, anything that you want to, because it's your mask. With me, I'm just going to do really thin, kind of thick towards the edge and then thin out. There we go. Okay, and then his mouth, he's very sad little mouth there. Okay, I'm also going to emphasize a small shadow under the nose. Okay, and then just so that you guys can see it a little bit, I'm going to add a small line on that side over there, or around his face, so that you guys can just kind of see it on camera a little bit better. All right, let's do Mr. Happy Guy. All right, when people are happy, they, you can see my eyebrows, normal, happy. They're usually up, like, they create like an archway. And the happier that you look, the more you're like, nah, surprised. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to raise his eyebrows up. Oh, he looks so happy and surprised. We've got to darken in these eyes. We're going to darken in that really happy mouth. I'm going to go ahead and go around his face. Going to go around his nose. And then you guys can see it from the camera. Okay, and so I'm going to teach you guys a little trick. We're almost done. I mean, we did this super, super fast. I'm going to teach you guys a trick with the bigger brush. So we have the strings that connect our masks. So just like the highlights and the lowlights, I'm going to teach you guys a little trick on how to make it kind of pop. Okay, so what we have is, if your curve is facing up, we're going to put it right there. Curve facing up, right there. Curve facing up, right there. So the curve is facing up. I'm putting a little bit of white on all of those curves. Okay. All right, and then I'm taking a darker color like my red. If the curve is facing down, put your red. Curve facing down, putting the red. Curve facing down, putting the red. Okay, so the reason we're doing that is that we have our shadow and we have our highlight. And so then what you're going to do is you're going to bring it around and you're going to mix the two colors together, and it's going to move out and look like a wave. It's really choppy because I'm doing it super fast, but from there, you can move it around, and you have a curve. Move it around, making up a song about it, tra-la-la. And let's do this guy right here. Up, up, up. Red, red, and move it around. And of course, like, you guys will have more time to do this. You can make it look absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And last but not least, let's have a little fun with this. So, if you guys have ever wanted sparkles, you can go to the corners, put a little white mark in the corner, and then go, pew, make stars. And add spirals. And add a spiral up here. Wah! More spirals. Oh my gosh, she's going crazy. Let's add another star just for giggles. Another star. And just adding random dots everywhere. Oh my God, this is insane. Okay, guys, so that's a basic on how to do the comedy and tragedy masks. Make it your own. Like, that's the great thing about art, is that you can make, mold, and do everything that goes with your personality. We're all different. You can use different colors, but in the end, you know, everything works out and everything's really pretty. So that's what I've got. Thank you for everybody who spent some time in Cel's basement watching her make a mask.
Well, thank you so much for coming along and showing us your thing there, Cel.
What?
Sorry, everybody, my microphone is terrible.
Okay.
Oh my God. It's the worst. Anyway, I'm gonna leave stuff in the comments section or in the description, and people can put links. But thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Did you need to see it up close?
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Let me see if I can like get you guys over here. The camera's kind of backwards, so there we go. So.
Well, that's fun.
So that's pretty fast, but if everybody takes their time with it, then it'll look cool.
Thank you so much, Cel.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, and you know, keep an eye on stuff, as we'll let other people know about what we've got going on for this this summer's events and things. So
awesome, very cool. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.